Everybody, welcome to Fulfillment Project. We've got a treat today. Joe Coleman from St. Kolbe Studios. He's the man, and I felt particularly called to reach out to him because my son is named Kolbe, not like the cheese, like everyone says, not Kobe like Kobe Bryant. I'm talking Kolbe, like St. Maximilian Kolbe. We wanted our son to have someone to look up to as he grew up, as he matured. Who are you named after? St. Kolbe. Read about his life, son, and be inspired and live up to that example. On top of me, your father, on top of your uncles, on top of your brothers and your family and your friends. We wanted that namesake to have a big impact. So, Joe, you're running St. Kolbe Studios. First of all, welcome to the show. Where are you calling in from?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in Tyler, Texas, so a couple hours from Dallas, about halfway between Dallas and Louisiana border. I am. If I sound or look bad, I apologize. We had our first child a couple weeks back, and so I'm in the home studio. I don't have my nice fancy setup, so there'd be a strong irony if I come on talking about a podcast production studio and just sound awful. So like I want to disclaim that up front. This is not what we're usually working with.
I couldn't even believe we'd get you. You had a baby 2 weeks ago, and
Yes.
I mean, someone of your profile, I'm surprised you accepted the invite. Period, and you accepted, and then you do it from home. So thanks for coming on, Joe. I should say howdy.
Absolutely.
Howdy, old Texas boy. Are you born and raised in Texas?
I am not. No, I was born in Bakersfield, California, so Cowtown separately, just just a different state. I moved around a handful of times, and then I landed here almost 4 years ago. At this point, my parents moved out this way, and I moved with them, and didn't plan to stay, but just sort of stuck. And now I have a house, a wife, a child, so I'm pretty well settled. I didn't plan to be, but it's great. It's a good place.
Dude, you got hooked in. Is she a Texas girl?
No, she's from the Pacific Northwest originally, but her family's been in Texas for 10, 11 years at this point. Something like that.
Welcome to Fulfillment Project. I'm so happy you tuned in today. If you get something out of this episode, please share it with a friend. Thumb up, subscribe, 5-star. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Substack. Wherever you get your content, you can find Fulfillment Project. All right, let's get back into it.
It's always amazing. I'm sure everyone listening has thought about the dominoes that fell in their life to get them to where they are. And then you extend that to your parents' life and your grandparents' life. And then throughout the millennia, the chances of us existing with the people we're existing with are 1 in a bazillion. I mean, it's amazing. You come to your parents come to Texas, you follow. Now you've got a wife who's not from Texas, a child with that wife, and like, what are the chances? So,
No, it's true.
hard pivot. Well, first of all, congratulations. Having a kid, is it what you thought?
I think in some ways, yeah. I've heard a number of different, I think it's different for the dad. And I've talked to a number of my buddies who've had kids, and there's kind of a wide range of, I immediately felt connected to the kid, to it kind of took me a year and change to really feel like, obviously like it's your flesh and blood, like that, but to feel a real connection. And so I heard enough of a spectrum that I think I had a decent idea of what it would be. So I'm somewhere in the ballpark. It was almost, dude, honestly, it was almost less exciting than I expected it to be, like much more casual. Like you sort of walk in. So my wife got induced, like the kid was 2 weeks late. Like it was time to go. The doctor was starting to get worried. And so she was basically just like, hey, go in. And it was like a Wednesday afternoon. We just packed up, went to the hospital. A couple days later, had a kid. Like it was a long process, but it was just so casual. Like Friday afternoon, we just are handed a child, and it was very matter of fact. I mean, the team was awesome. I was really grateful. Like the L&D, all the nurses, they were phenomenal. But it was just such a like casual experience. It's this weird, I guess, duality of this is one of the most sacred things in your entire life, and it's also like the most common thing you could possibly do. Pretty much everyone in history has had a child with, obviously we have monks and nuns and such, but more often than not, you're having a kid. It's just what you do. So it's this weird, like, it's the least interesting thing you can do, and also like the most important thing you could ever do at the same time. It's a very weird thing to kind of grapple with.
That duality is crazy. With that in mind, you gonna have any more?
Well, I expect so. Probably not for at least a few more weeks. We gotta take a break. But I'm like, this one's great. Yeah, let's do it again. Let's crank out some more. I'm excited.
You know, what's also interesting about what you said, similar experience, we adopted both of our boys, but at birth, at the hospital, we have a relationship with their birth parents. Really beautiful process for us, and we're really fortunate in that way. But it felt so natural. I felt so connected to them from the very beginning. It was both the biggest thing that happened in my life after marrying my wife, and also just so like, this is the way it should be. This is what I've always wanted.
Yeah.
And so the fact
Yeah.
that this baby is in my hands just feels like, in a way, they were always there. And now it's just coming to fulfillment, something I always hoped for. And it's like massive and normal. Alex Osberg on my podcast a couple weeks ago said, people have had it worse and done it better. And whenever it's tough for me, I always think, we're not the first ones going through this lack of sleep thing, the teething thing, the potty training thing. Like, millions of people have done it before. And that gives me hope sometimes. Not like it's futile, but like, I can do this. They survived and I will survive too.
Yeah. No, it's true. I also think about this. I'm like, I'm not the smartest dude God ever created, but I'm certainly not the dumbest. People with less have managed to do this and do it just fine. Like, I'll figure it out. It'll be all right. It's just, to some degree, it's not a big deal. Like, it's just doable.
Well, yeah, and some people with a lot less have done like magnificent things. They haven't just made it work, but like, they've made it work in incredible ways, in ways that are aspirational. So I'm reading Mindset right now by Carol Dweck, and it's like the growth mindset deal where you either have a limiting mindset of you are born with X talents and that is what you have. So you're constantly trying to prove that you are this talented in a given domain. But people with a growth mindset always encounter a situation like they're growing. So this parent thing, I'm not a natural born parent, but I think I can grow into it, you know, and I'm always looking for opportunities, as opposed to someone who right off the bat, based on an initial impression, thinks I'm a good parent or I'm not a good parent. And like that limiting mindset of, I was born this way and that's the only way I can be. It's a very fascinating book. I'm learning a lot from it. So anyway, Carol Dweck, thank you so much for Mindset. I've heard a bunch about it over the years, and I thought it's finally time for me to stop reading the tweets and read the actual book itself. So Joe, take me to the biz. Let's go back to St. Kolbe Studios. Why'd you start it? What's happening? Bring me up to speed there.
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, St. Kolbe Studios is just an extension of the work I was previously doing. I was a freelancer for a number of years. I did freelance content writing and audio production for a number of years, but before starting St. Kolbe Studios, I started my career in broadcast radio. That's where I learned, how to do
in Nome, Alaska.
In Nome, Alaska.
Why? Why?
I got a job there. There was a radio station out there, oldest Catholic radio station in the U.S., KNOM. Shout out KNOM.org.
Boom.
Yeah, it was great, and I was all set to go somewhere else. I was all set to start a teaching gig, actually, and they ended up just they were like, well, we don't have a spot for you, but we've got this alternate spot. I think it's been so many years at this point. I'm trying to remember. I was gonna teach, I think, theology or something like that, something useful. And then they went, actually, the guy who was teaching that is staying on. He wasn't expected to, but he came back. And so, like, we might be able to get you, like, a history teaching gig. I'm like, okay. And then they couldn't really do that. And they're like, we could probably get you to teach PE. And I went, I feel like this might not be for me at this point.
Yeah, we're getting a little stretched out here.
It just kind of kept falling. And my mom, of all people, my mom saw an advertisement for KNOM in some magazine somewhere. And she went, hey, do you know about this? And I was like, actually, yeah, I have heard of that. I worked in the office I worked in college, had relationships with a lot of like postgraduate service sort of things. And KNOM is kind of like, it's a 501c3, so they take people from time to time, and we had a couple from my university who'd gone over the years, so I was like vaguely familiar with it. I put in an application, I got an interview. I think within 2-3 weeks, I was offered the job, and I just went, all right, I'm gonna move. It was pure happenstance, just like being pushed into it. But yeah, so I almost for no reason ended up there. It was great. It's difficult. It was a difficult transition from, Southern California to rural Alaska, as one might expect. But I learned a ton. It was great. And that sort of started off my, audio production career. I'm a big believer in the medium. Like, I love podcasts. It was sort of just a natural extension to get into podcasts. Like, I think it is the best medium to have any sort of meaningful discussion. Like, we all know there was a time, I think, when cable news was, I don't know if it was ever good. It was certainly better at one point, and people trusted it, liked it more. But now, I mean, you've got a 30-minute segment, with 6 minutes of commercials. You've got 3 minutes, or a 30-minute total block, 6 minutes of commercials, 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes per segment, maybe 10 tops with a couple breaks if you've got a high-profile guest. Like, you can't do anything meaningful in that block. And this isn't even like evil liberal media. It's like purely just the structure of it. It doesn't work. Like, you cannot do anything meaningful in that short of a time. Like, 60 minutes maybe, but you just can't do it. And podcasts allow you to. So I wanted to build
It's always
something.
crazy when you turn on the TV, they come back from the commercial and they say, all right, hey, Joe, we have 30 seconds. Give me your thoughts on this on the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, we just came back from a commercial. I thought we were going to get a little meat on the bone here. The guy's got 30 seconds to unpack a massive topic. He gives you a couple high-level things you've probably already heard 10 times from somewhere else, just some sound bites, and they move on. It is the structure. I guess it's the way you have to monetize that biz, but it is.
Yeah, I mean, it is. TV is just a vehicle to sell advertising. Like, that's it. That's all it is. Maybe you can make a good faith argument that says at one point it wasn't, but now it just is. Like, that it's a vehicle to sell advertisements, and you might learn something along the way. You probably will learn something that's at best a half-truth along the way, but maybe you learn something.
Yeah, well, I've heard this somewhere where what I heard, and I'm going to relate it to TV, is like magazines are like candy, and then books are like a full meal. And TV is like candy. Well, maybe YouTube Shorts is like candy. TV might be a little bit more, but a snack. But if you want the full topic, you have to go on a podcast to get the full. If you at least want to know what someone thinks about a topic, you have to listen to an extended conversation or read their book, like I'm doing with Carol Dweck. Like, I've bitten enough pieces of that candy to know, like, man, I want the full meal here. And same with TV. Maybe it gives us a hook into a personality or a thought. But if we want to fully explore that, we've got to go elsewhere, because TV will never give that to us. And there's even some good long-form stuff on YouTube now where you can get long-form videos on very hyper-specific topics, so long as someone credible is doing it. Man, you can get some good stuff.
There's a lot of good, there's a lot of good independent journalism that's happening on YouTube and Substack and podcasts and places like this that it's ironically, Substack and YouTube are these large conglomerates, YouTube more so, but ironically enough, even though it is a very large platform, because the creators are individuals, they're much smaller entities, they have a much lower cost need, I guess is the term for it. You're not trying to pay a full team, full studio production team, on-air talent, things like that, everybody on the back end. You're paying maybe an editor for your podcast or an editor for your Substack, or you're, paying a part-time assistant to help you out, things like that. But you're at most your costs are in six figures, like at most for most everyone, Joe Rogan and the like aside, like your costs are six figures at most. Whereas, you're hitting seven figures, eight figures when you're going into television and these larger mediums. So you have to subsidize that with ads and things that don't really serve the message of, whatever the truth is that you're trying to get out. Whereas these creators on Substack, podcasts, YouTube, they can go, all right, well, I can take sponsors that align with the values of what I'm trying to do, or maybe I roll the dice in YouTube AdSense, whatever the case may be, but I can do it in a much less invasive way, and I can also offer something much more substantial and still get paid to do it, because, I'm crowdfunding it in a way, like, back when journalists used to be bootstrapped and they used to be poor, like, we used to have like rugged, like 1920s, back when the coasts were for the poor instead type journalists. And now we're just seeing, I think, a renaissance of that, except, they're not living in squalor and eating bugs or whatever they were doing back in the day. Like, they can do well now, which is great. All power to them. But I really think podcasts and things like that are bringing out a renaissance of independent journalism, which is great. I'm all for it.
Me too. But what makes it hard, at least in my personal journey, is since the ceiling has been lowered so much, or like the barriers to entry, it's hard to find the good stuff sometimes, because there is so much out there. So how do you find your stuff, like the content you're interested in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably the most valuable thing, ironically enough, the world's gotten bigger with the internet and whatnot, but in some ways, because it's gotten so large, all the old school tactics, the only things that work, I think word of mouth is still the best way to get your podcast out there. You have a listener who is engaged enough to tell a friend about your podcast. Like that already puts them in the top 10% of your listeners. I think that genuinely, if I hear one of two things, a friend of mine tells me about a podcast that they like, that they think I might like, or two, I hear about a podcast, or I hear a podcast mentioned on a podcast I'm already listening to. Like one podcast will shout out another one. Like I'll think about checking that out. And if they're already talking about it, there's a decent chance that if I like the show I'm listening to, I'll also like the one mentioned. So I tend to get my stuff that way. I'm not a big believer in organic search when it comes to podcasts. I think with some notable exceptions for maybe hyper specific things in tech or B2B or maybe like accounting or something like that, like professions. I think specific professions that you would listen to, like you'd listen to if you were in local SEO, you'd listen to an hour podcast on local SEO because that's going to help you get better at this really specific thing. I think that's the exception. Even still, you probably get recommendations. I'm not a huge believer in organic at this point, with a few exceptions. I really think that just name recognition and recommendations are still the way to go. That's at least how I get mine.
Joe, I think you and me, I'm curious now. I want to take a poll just talking to people over the next week and see how people, because it must be that way for most people. I remember reading Love is the Killer App by Tim Sanders, one of my favorite books. Everyone that comes on my team, I get him a copy. And a life dream of mine is to meet Tim Sanders and just shake his hand and thank him, because I learned so. I was in the desert when I discovered that book 15 years ago, and I've referenced it time and time again over the years. And
I'm not familiar. What is that?
So the whole concept of the book is love is the application to success. Money is not the real currency of the professional world. Your knowledge is, and your network is. And how do you get knowledge? By reading and consuming material and then sharing that freely with people and sharing your Rolodex or your contacts with people freely. When you provide someone with value and then you back out of it, and you're not constantly reminding them, hey, I told you this, hey, give me a little kickback here, but you just provide freely, you will receive in return. It may be a little more ambiguous than a transactional tit for tat, but he makes the argument that the currency of the modern economy is your knowledge and your relationships. And that got me reading in a really, 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 really big way. And if you live this lifestyle, he calls you a love cat. He would consider himself a love cat. I certainly would consider myself a love cat. And I've got several love cats that I surround myself with because I love people that love to learn. I love people that like to share freely, trusting that it is in giving that you receive. And you can't count the cost. You just give with an open heart. And when you need, it'll come back. If you want a smile, you give a smile. And you have to give first before you can hope to get something in return. So anyway, Tim Sanders, awesome dude. Back to, that was a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
But he says, I was trying to remember, how do we get onto that? He says in that book, if a book you're reading and you like and is relevant for you mentions another book, order that book right away. And he would also say, get the hard copy, treat it like a textbook, take notes in it. He has a whole note-taking methodology, which I subscribe to and I really love. But nevertheless, so I would read a book and it's like, I used to run into, I'd finish a book and it's like, oh, now I got to go to the library. Now I got to search and find the next one. But when you start getting books that they reference either in the book directly or that they cite in the index or the appendix, oh my gosh, all of a sudden more books start stacking up than you can read. And it's really amazing. And they're on specific topics that you're specifically interested in, which is really good. So back to your point, Joe, about how do you get your content? That's a great way. It's a similar way that I do it. Talking about your podcast, which is dope. If people are listening and you haven't subscribed to the St. Kolbe Studios podcast, check it out. I subscribe on Spotify, which is my local dealer for podcasts. But you've got a couple podcasts I want to dive into.
Sure.
And you have this LinkedIn post that has me dying. Let's start with the LinkedIn post because it's a little separate from that. Your $1 billion idea. Can you tell people about your $1 billion idea?
Oh my gosh.
Or I
Yeah.
can't because I have it pulled up right here.
No, I think I just put this up maybe yesterday. I was thinking about this, and I do honestly most of my leads coming off of LinkedIn, and from time to time I go, this is going to do numbers, and this one did pretty well because I was just pulling baby wipes out. I'm like, dude, if someone just creates baby wipes where I can grab one at a time, like easy, one handed, no problem, like I don't know why this doesn't exist. And I know there are ways. I was taught about the rubber band method, which is very exciting. I'm excited to try that. I know there's like little cases you can like aftermarket OXO cases you can put them in and pull one out, which is great. But if I could just buy a mass market one where I can grab one at a time, like I don't know why this doesn't exist. And I got a bunch of conspiracies in the comments, like it's so you buy more, you have to grab 5 at a time. And I'm like, honestly, yeah, that sounds right. I believe that. But I'm telling you, whoever makes that, whoever just does it like top shelf will be rich. I don't know why it doesn't exist.
We can put a man on the moon, but we can't make a pack of wipes where one comes out at a time. Joe, I've got 2 kids. I bought some aftermarket stuff. And I just want something. I go to Costco and I buy 50 of these things. The aftermarket ones, you got to cut the pack open. You got to load it in. It's like a whole thing. And then you don't moisten the moisture pad properly. So then they all go dry anyway. And it's or whatever. That's the one we had. There could be different types, but it's great. So, dude, your $1 billion idea, I was laughing my butt off because it's so relatable. And that ties into a recent podcast you did on will AI take our jobs? And I'm just going to quickly give my answer. No. You know why? Because AI is not changing diapers on a baby, and they don't get the relatability of certain topics to real human beings. It's like why certain comics are funny is because there's a nugget that everyone can hook into. And like some of these posts, you can utilize it. I utilize AI a lot in my work and in my personal life, of course. But when it comes to relating to people, man, I don't think AI will ever be able to do it. What was the synthesis from your show on the topic?
Yeah, I think if it's been a while. I think that was my friend Alex Cadena, who's also out here in Tyler, runs And Oak Marketing. He's great. He was a really fun chat. He's a very thoughtful guy. And yeah, we kind of came to that same conclusion of like, yeah, I mean, look, I'm certainly not pro AI, but I'm not against it. I think it's fine. I think it's just, I mean, my first theory is we have like a .com bust for AI. I'm sure that's what's coming. There are so many overvalued AI firms out there that we're going to have a bust and then we're going to reset and we're going to find where it fits in and it'll just be part of life. It's in my mind, it's fancy Google. That's what I use it for. And it is really helpful. Like I like it. But yeah, I mean, the more things become automated, the more we want human connection and the more just being able to converse with people, be interesting to talk to, be genuinely interested in what they have to say, what they're doing. Like if you can do that, you're fine. And that's, I mean, it is a skill to some degree. I mean, some people have it a little more naturally than others, but even if you don't, if you feel like you're introverted or quiet or, all that, like it's just a muscle. Like you can practice it. Like you can get good at it. Dude, charisma on command on YouTube. Just watch every video on there. A year later, you'll be good. Like you really will. I watched some of those back in the day. It's hilarious and like almost embarrassing to admit, but that stuff works. If you ever go like, I want my conversations to go a little better, watch that YouTube channel. Like big believer in it. But I really think that's it. Like the more people don't really like the automated checkouts. You go to like the supermarket and you have to do a self checkout. People don't really like that. We just sort of accept it. In an ideal world, I think people would choose to have a human being check them out. It's just, but you trade it off for convenience. Like that is why. And I think the same thing happens here where we go, these chatbots are not better than talking to a person. I hate talking to them. I just want to talk to a human being who can solve my problems. And I think that's where we get. Like it becomes a tool, it becomes useful. If you use it well, great. But I'm not worried about it taking my job. I think it'll take low-level creative jobs, like low-level white-collar stuff that you would otherwise maybe go on Fiverr and outsource for real cheap. I think it'll take those because you don't care about quality there. It's pure price. Anything beyond that, I wouldn't. I mean, I was a freelance writer for a long time. I'm connected with a good amount of those people still. And I used to be worried about it when, what is it called? Jasper AI. I don't know if that one still exists. It's like a content writing AI. And when it first came out, I was real worried, and there were a lot of people who were real worried. And now I'm just like, nah, this thing, it's fine. It's perfectly good, but it's not great. But if all you want is keywords and things like that, yeah, it'll do it better for much cheaper.
Well, and it can get you close, but you can always smell AI from a mile away. So
Yeah.
I think it's great for ideating. It's great for drafting. It's great. I was talking in a previous episode, I upload all the transcripts from all my business meetings in there and I have it criticize me. And it's really good. You can get some good templates online, and I've customized some of my personal GPTs now. So it analyzes me for me. But it's a tool. I don't think it will replace humanity. But like VO3 is making videos with sound. And will some
Yeah.
production studios close down because it's a lot less expensive to subscribe to VO3 and create content than have a whole, I mean, there's a lot of overhead with
Yeah.
a brick and mortar studio. And now it can all be
Certainly.
fake. You don't need sign-offs on talent. It's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible.
It is. That's the one thing I'm a little worried about. But at the same time, and maybe you disagree with me on this, but I don't see a scenario where people go to the movie theater to watch a completely AI generated movie. Like there's something in our brains that doesn't compute. Like nobody, and like you don't think about this when you go into a movie theater. You're like, oh, humans made this and that makes it good. Like you take that as de facto.
Yeah.
But I can't see, and again, maybe you can't push back on me if you disagree, but I don't see a scenario where anyone wants that. Like I know it's cheaper, but I don't think it's ultimately more profitable. Like I really don't. I think you might for 15-second not even like 15-second like pre-roll ads on YouTube, vertical first, something like that. Maybe, but I don't see it. I don't know.
It's certainly not good enough yet, and I wonder if they ever get to that point, if you will just feel it in your soul that something is missing here. Like there's like putting your feet on the grass grounding. I am not super into that stuff, except it's real, dude. When my feet are on the grass, I feel more connected than when my feet are in shoes. And if I'm watching a movie with no real humans in it, with no real voices, will I sense something missing? And maybe it's not overt, but maybe it's like, and it would have to get a lot better, because right now that couldn't it's not good enough.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
in time, it's only going to keep getting better.
I think so. Yeah. Even still, my thing on it isn't even its quality. I'm sure it's going to get better. But I think that the only way it would work is you would have to just not know it was AI. Like it would have to be so good and it'd have to be kept under wraps. Because even if it looked exactly shot for shot like a studio movie, I think it would just be too kind of uncanny valley for people. You're like, this in front of me just isn't real. Like there is no humanity to this. And I know, and I'm a little uneasy about it. And I hope I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it really does just depend on what you think the point of art is. Actually, heck, more fundamentally, maybe it depends on what you think art is itself. Like, is art necessarily human self-expression? Is it? I think probably a good definition, or at least previously, would be something like something that represents the truth of reality, or something like that. But I mean, AI can do that. Maybe we'd equivocate on terms, but is art necessarily human? I think that's the first thing you have to solve. And then after that, okay, if you solve for that, what's the point of art? Is it purely recreational? Like, does it have to be transcendent? I mean, obviously, if you're Catholic, you're going to say, yes, it has to be transcendent to some degree. I mean, I think there's probably a wide range of what that could be, but it has to somehow be transcendent. And if you have purely AI generated art, like that can't exist, because AI can't, reflect the goodness of God, because it can't think. I think it is that in the same way, like a dog can't reflect the goodness of God by being a dog, like, in some natural way, I suppose, but not in a deliberate way. I think it's kind of the same thing. So I really think people would just feel something's missing and that they couldn't get into it. I hope I'm right. I really do.
Well,
I worry
I'm
I'm wrong,
wondering.
but I hope I'm right.
Welcome to Fulfillment Project. So happy you're joining us today. If you get something out of this episode, please like and subscribe and share with a friend or 100 friends. Now let's get back to it.
That's what I'm wondering, because unlike a dog, they're imitating humans. So is there a dynamic there? I don't know. I'll be curious to see. I mean, we're on it for the ride, you know. But
Yeah.
the way we're utilizing it in business is in a big way, where there used to be a lot of humans in the creation of things. You have 4 or 5 bots teaming up to create and then check and adjust. And then a human, you always need a human in the process.
Yeah.
Like even in a donut factory where you're looking for the donut that is misshapen and they're grabbing it, you know, because machines are only so good. You always need that eye on it. All right, I want to go, dude. There's a couple more topics I want to run through that really caught my attention on your podcast, and
Great.
I love it.
Yeah.
Men can't go through life alone. That's a topic. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was Kenneth Haroff. Yeah, good guy. He's local. Yeah, you grabbed a couple of the. I think the only 2 like local ones I've done. There is
My
something
dream,
about,
by the way, pause. I want
Yeah.
it. Why men can't live alone. My dream is to have a live studio where you're flying to me. I'm currently,
Would be
my
sick.
office is in a building where a guy runs a podcast in person, beautiful studio. And I've done some EPs with him. And whoa, it's a lot different talking to somebody on
It
chairs
is.
across from each other than
It
the
is.
webinar thing. This is really good. And it's amazing. I can have people from all over the world on Fulfillment Project. But it's just a little
But it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same. Yeah. There is, well, I think that's kind of the point, that there is no, during COVID, I think we learned this pretty quickly, that you can't have a synthetic relationship, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, you can't just have a relationship over your Zoom and you text people. Like, you have to be in person to some degree. And this isn't to say you can't have friends who are across the country, but that only works because at some point you were in the same place. Like,
Yep.
I don't believe in internet friends. I get hate for this, but I don't believe in internet friends. I don't think they're real. Someone I'm sure could make a good faith argument that disproves me, and I'm open to that, but I don't think they're real. I really think
Well,
you
it's the
have
same in
to-
my business. You can carry on business via the internet and via webinars and email so long as you have good touch points, especially at the middle and then throughout.
Yes. Absolutely.
My least quality relationships in work are the ones that started with an email and carry on via email and webinar only. The best ones are the ones where I'm in person the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel
absolutely.
like that's pretty natural. When I see these Samsung commercials where kids are having a relationship, talking to their phone like, hey, I was really lonely today. And I appreciate the social emotional support that probably is for some people. But the best man in my wedding isn't going to be my phone. At least, well,
Right.
you know, the best man in my wedding was Mike Ray, and I love the dude. But could you imagine in a day and time where someone has like their phone up there and they're like, this thing has been through it all with me?
I don't think we're that far from it. I mean, I don't think that specific scenario happens, but I don't know if you've kept up with this. I learned this super recently. I'm sure behind the times, but the stats on the numbers on relationships with AI, GPTs based on generational differences, like Gen Z, even Gen Alpha has a very different relationship than everyone older than them for 2 reasons. One, they grew up with it and, well, it came into their life much earlier. And, they don't think it's like a fancy box. Like, the boomers all love to them. Like, they see tech as a fancy box for the most part. They don't get it, which is fine. If I, 50 years from now, whatever comes out, I'm not going to get it either. No judgment here. I won't understand it. But the fact that there is a large percent, it's mostly young girls that, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, they respond to the survey and will say that they have some romantic relationship with like an AI. Terrifying. You'd think it'd be young boys because, Japan and Korea, they're not exactly crushing it right now. But it turns out it's mostly young women, which is terrifying. So like,
Whoa, I have not
I don't
seen
think
that.
I
I got to look that up. That's
Dude, it's
scary.
Like, I just had a girl, and so I'm like, I'm terrified of that. I'm glad I'm up ahead of it, but like the next, 18 years of her life, 25 years of her life, like, who knows what that's going to look like. But yeah, I don't think we're that far. I mean, again, your phone's never going to be your best man. I say this now, knock on wood. Nobody quote tweet me in 20 years, but we're not great at being in person. I mean, it's not a hot take to be like, oh, the pandemic kind of wrecked us socially. Like, obviously it did. But people are really grappling with that in bad ways where they're looking to GPTs and things like that for like socio-emotional support and like
Yeah.
friendship, which, because so many people, it used to be, men over 50 maybe have one friend, maybe. And now it's like everybody. If you have 3 friends, you are crushing it. And like 3 like legitimately good friends, you are crushing it in life because so many people just don't have that. So it's the natural extension. We want a synthetic version of it. We want a GPT to tell us that everything is okay. And here's how to, invest. And here's how to, cope with your symptoms of depression or things like that. And we're outsourcing all these tasks onto a tool that's not designed for these tasks, which worries me. I mean, I don't think that's a hot take to be worried about that. But yeah, I mean, the numbers on it are not wildly encouraging. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I think those of us having, young kids now who are young enough to understand what these things are and have the time to kind of prepare for what the world's going to look like, when our kids are 10, 12, 15 and going, okay, this is what some of your friends are probably going to be doing. Here's why that's bad. And here's how you can help them as an extension. Like, here's how you can extend kindness to your friends who are going through this and look to GPTs for support or whatever the case may be. But
Yeah, like helpful
it's
talk
wild.
tracks. I mean, our generation, Joe, is going to be like the generation when cell phones were introduced. And it's easy. Hindsight's 2020, Monday morning quarterback. Oh, they did it wrong with the cell phones. They gave it to kids too early or too late or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
they were figuring it out, just like we're trying to figure out this AI thing. And who knows what's next? Maybe implanting stuff or whatever. And
Yeah. It's only moving faster than, the early era of cell phones. We're moving so much faster than they could even have fathomed when, the first cell phone was a brick, or even when the first iPhone came out. Like, we are moving infinitely faster than Apple did in, the 2000s, and they were like at the height of innovation at that point. So to think that we're making them look like turtles, terrifying.
Crazy. So
it's really something you got to be on top of.
Give me some insight on this, Joe, before we go to Men Can't Go Through Life Alone. I'm working on an article called The Efficiency of Inefficiency. I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but I want to build it out as a big idea podcast. So I do these long form podcasts, and then every couple weeks, maybe once a month, I put out a big idea where I launch like a new concept that I introduce on the show and I try and get people's takes on. The Efficiency of Inefficiency.
I like
what do you
that.
think?
Yeah, no, I like that. This is something I've said before as well. There is something about, like, we want to be hyper efficient. I think there was a time, I think we're on the back end of this, where like efficiency and the grind set was like the height of what you could be.
Yeah.
And now we're realizing that's kind of bankrupt. Not that people have stopped trying to be efficient. We just don't glorify it as much. We almost just kind of normalized it. Sitting down and just spending time with people is inefficient if your goal is maximization of money or pleasure or something like that. Like, yeah, it is inefficient, but if you live your life pure efficiency, you're going to be just depressed by 50 tops.
Yeah.
Probably by like 35, 40. And so I think one of the things is,
or like we were just talking about, by the time you're 15, 16, 17, you don't have any humanoid relationships. It's like, that's what brought this to my mind, is maximizing efficiency makes you devoid of all quality and value in life, I think.
Yeah, I mean, humans are like structurally inefficient in many ways. Like, to some degree, we are incredibly efficient machines because of, well, one, because, how our shoulder works. We could throw spears, so we could take down woolly mammoths and whatnot. And we have, oversized brains, so we can solve problems. So in some ways, we're like hyper efficient machines. But in most ways, at least now, we are so inefficient compared to, the alternatives, which, it's one of those things. It's a feature, not a bug. I mean, efficiency just isn't the height of all success. But in terms of, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. Not that women should go through life alone either, but I think men are especially a concern over the last, 20 years of, we're not great at expressing our feelings just like as a de facto state, which I know people hate on that. I don't necessarily think it's bad that men aren't terribly expressive. I think we just express things differently, and you have to kind of operate within that confines. Like, a man's not going to talk to you about his emotions in the same way that a woman will, sure, but he will do it. You have to go about it differently. And as long as you understand it through that lens, you're fine. But, so many guys, especially if you live in a city where it's hard to get around, you got to drive 30 minutes to get to your friend. Like, you won't do it. So I think the biggest thing is you have to go one of two things. One, I'm moving closer to all my friends, or two, I just accept that this is a difficulty that, modernity has kind of thrust upon me. And I have to just build in this cost of, I need to see my friends. It's difficult to do that. I just have to do it anyway, because otherwise, I mean, you just feel you're drifting, you're kind of listless. And I've certainly been there. This is no judgment to anybody who's in that scenario. A few years ago, this was definitely me. So I get it. When I was freelance writing and traveling and whatnot, like, I didn't see that many people, at least not consistently. But, I think if men, we say we're called to do great things, Christ-like sacrifices and things like that, it is near impossible unless you're a saintly hermit to do that alone. Like, you need men who are going to lift you up in ways that, like, your wife can lift you up and your children can lift you up, but they do it differently. And like, you need both of these things. You need all of these things together. But without your fellow men who understand the world in the way you do, you're only getting half of it. And your wife just cannot fulfill that part for you. And you shouldn't expect her to. That's not her role in your life. It's not your role in hers to fulfill her female friendships and things like that. You need your guys around you. And at some point, I think what we're going to see is we have to just go, all right, not like bunker down, but you have to just go, look, it's going to cost me more to live near my friends, near my family, but it's going to be infinitely better. I can't take the money with me. Like, I have to just say, I'm planting my flag here. I'm staying here. I'm not going to pick up and go when it's difficult. I'm just going to build something here, hell or high water. We're going to do it. And I think it's also, men need maybe a quest is kind of a silly term, but you need a point. And modern office jobs, so often they don't really have a point. There's not like a dragon you're slaying. So like, you need a task. You need a legitimate goal in life besides, the attainment of heaven and heaven for your spouse and children, obviously. But that as a given, you need this sort of earthly task as well to go, this is something I'm fighting for. This gives me purpose. Because if you don't have that, I mean, it's real difficult to go through life without that. And it's much easier to find that if you have your guys around you to lift you up when it's hard, keep you on track, all that things, So I don't think it's a hot take that men shouldn't live alone. I think that it's just kind of a de facto thing that we've decided, because we can synthesize all our relationships. We can go on YouTube, we can go on Netflix, we can kind of soothe the loneliness that we should be feeling. I know this has gone on long. There's one thing I want to plug. I wish I could. I think it was you ever heard the podcast, The Art of Manliness?
No.
I think you'd really like it. It's basically just an interview podcast where the guy talks to authors. And one of the ones, he's been doing this for years. The guy's great, Brett McKay. One of the ones in the last few months he's put out, it was on the loneliness epidemic. And the guy he has on is actually making the case that there is no loneliness epidemic, and that's the problem. Because loneliness is a thing you feel that like forces you to go find people, right?
Yeah.
But if you can kind of get your dopamine hit from your phone, from social media, from streaming services, things like that, you actually don't quite feel lonely. And that's a problem. Like, loneliness is necessary. You should feel that. But if you can kind of soothe that feeling, you won't even force yourself to leave the house. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, that's what he's seeing. He certainly knows more than I do. It's a really interesting listen. If you have, it's somewhere in his back catalog of the last few months, if you have time to go listen through it.
I want to check it out.
Absolutely fascinating.
And it makes sense. And I see it in other people, and I see it in me, the freneticism of life, where you can get so wrapped up in work and then home, and then you're filling in all the space, all the void is filled in with my phone. Like, when you look at your own data on how much you turn your phone on, it tracks that. For me, when I looked once, it was like 3,500 times a day on average.
Yeah,
and I was
pick it
like,
up
are
so
you
often.
kidding me? It fills in
Terrifying.
all the void. So now that taught me I'm not giving myself any time to think, any time to reflect, any time to recognize that I need connection like you're talking about. And so that's really valuable to recognize in yourself, so that you can start to put disciplined rules in place to stop it. And the phone's not bad. None of this stuff is bad. I love you.
No,
too.
not inherently. No,
But like,
no, it's a neutral.
But I need my guys. Iron sharpens iron. Men need men. When I got married, my dad told me one of the best things that happened to their marriage was my mom's girlfriends because she had an outlet. And when she was expecting him to give her what she needed from and requires, maybe even by human nature, from other women, he was falling short. And it wasn't his fault. It was the way it is, you know? And so what you said there about men needing men, I mean, the inverse is true. Men need men like women need women. And the best thing as a married couple you can do for each other is to support and nurture those relationships in your spouse's life. It's going to be a sacrifice, especially if you have kids, because someone's alone with the kids that night or someone's staying back. But and like my wife has told me to support my physicality. She's like, I want to be married to the type of guy that works out. And in order for you to work out, I got to hold it down in the mornings or the afternoons or the evenings when you're doing this, and vice versa. Like, you recognize the type of person you want to be, and then you have to help yourself and those in your sphere of influence achieve that. And it could mean some personal deficit for yourself, and that's good. That's really good. Like, not everything can work out for everyone's benefit all the time. If I want my wife to receive some benefit, okay, so now if you look at it through like a bigger lens, maybe it is to my benefit to be holding down the house alone by myself. There can be fruit there with the right paradigm. So maybe I just disagreed with myself, but I actually agree with the second version of myself more. Any more thoughts on that?
No, I think not on that. I mean, I suppose on just what you just said, I think that's absolutely right. One of the, I've said this, you know, throughout our marriage, one of the best things about my wife is that she's very much like, my wife is much more introverted than I am. And she understands, she doesn't necessarily relate, but she understands the way I am. And she's like, no, you need to go out. Like, you know, text your friends, go out, go get a beer, go somebody's house, do whatever you got to do. But like, you need to do this. I'm fine at home. Don't worry about me, which I don't understand. I feel bad like leaving her behind because like I don't think that way. And she's just genuinely fine. She's like, no. Go. Like, this is time for me, for you to be somewhere else, for me to just have the house to myself and kind of come back down. And it's easily one of the best things that, you know, my wife does for me is just understand that I need to go do these things. Otherwise, I will just be dead, tired, sad. Like, I'm not going to be the ideal version of me if I don't get to do this. And she knows that, like, completely understands it and supports it, which is so helpful. Like, if you don't have that, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to stay married to someone who doesn't, you know, support you, even if they don't quite understand why you do it. They don't quite relate. They get that you need it and support that. Like, that's all you need. But if you don't have that, it's not insurmountable, but it's certainly tough. And it's something you got to figure out sooner rather than later, because it's not sustainable long term. But it's easily one of the best blessings of our marriage that she gets it. It's been incredibly helpful to me.
Totally. Two thoughts on that. Number one, I always put out self-reflection guides after these episodes to help people internalize what we're talking about on the show. It's always the worst to listen to a show and you're like, that's awesome for Joe Coleman. Joe gets it. And then like tomorrow I'm like, man, how do I do that in Andy's life? How can I incorporate some of that? So I always do self-reflection guides. And this is going to show up in there, people. If you're not currently giving your significant other, your spouse, freedom to get fed by the people they need to be fed by, build some discipline into your life to make that a reality. You got to do it. It's uncomfortable, but you got to do it, and you'll be better for it, and so will they, and they will have more gas in the tank to fill you up more. Two, I used to be, what's the word? What is an addict to a drug? Addicted? Maybe? I used to be.
I think it's just an addict, yeah.
Love is blind. I used to partake. Man. And there was this one season with this one dude where after they got married, he was still going out multiple days a week till like 3, 4, 5 in the morning. I forget his name. But so there are limits to these things is what I'm trying to say. It
seems like the excess of that, yeah.
Yeah, like just because you need doses doesn't mean you want to take advantage of it. You still got to hold it down at home. You still got to give your spouse what they need. But within moderation, you need to fill your tank. But just know it's not it's not like, I'm not coming home tonight, you know?
Right, yeah.
So,
like all things, there is an excess and a deficit. You want to find yourself somewhere in the middle.
Right on. Joe, so fun. I can't believe we're already way over 30 minutes. I mean, we're 45.
Yeah, we are.
You get the last word. What do you want to say? Where can people find you if they want to know more about Joe Coleman?
Yeah. StKolbestudios.com. It's all spelled out, SAINT, StKolbestudios.com. You can also find me, Joe Coleman, on LinkedIn, as well as our St. Kolbe Studios page on LinkedIn, should you find that. We don't do a whole lot with it, but, it's there. But yeah, I realized I didn't talk a whole lot about what we do. The very short of it is St. Kolbe Studios is a podcast production agency producing Catholic podcasts, primarily for individuals and businesses, but, we do ministries, nonprofits, things like that. But primary target is often individuals and businesses, anybody with an offer that they want to use a podcast to promote. Really, that's pretty much what we do. StKolbestudios.com. If you have a podcast you want edited or you want help starting one from the ground up, we do both. You can give us a call on there. You can call us via our website. It's really neat. We've got a little app. You can basically FaceTime us direct on the website. You'll get me. I'll pick up. I'll say hi. It's great. Shout out face2face.io if you're a business owner. It's like $300 a year. Completely worth it. StKolbestudios.com. Yeah, that's us.
I love that. And I'm not currently a subscriber to Joe's services or a customer, but I hope to be one day. Anyone thinking about starting a podcast, call Joe. I will tell you firsthand, it's a lot of work to get started. It's a lot of work, a lot of nights, a lot of weekends. And based on the offerings I was checking out on his site, oh my gosh, he makes it easy so you can focus on what you want to focus on, which is the content, and all the other stuff gets done. It reminds me of Tony Hsieh, rest in peace, his book, Delivering Happiness. He's the dude that created Zappos. And I love his book, Delivering Happiness. It was an influential book early on. But he said the way he closed Nike, getting to sell Nike on Zappos, is he brought them to the office, the sales pitch. He says, no one has better customer service than we do. And he said, call them and ask them anything. And a Nike executive called Zappos 1-800 number, chatted with them, very friendly, asked them to deliver a pizza to the boardroom. And sure enough, a pizza shows up, so of course I'm thinking, and he tells you in the book, he's like, test us out. So I call Zappos 1-800 number. At this point, I'd never been a Zappos customer, but I just want to see, I read his book. The friendliest person. I get talking to her. She's like, their headquarters are in Vegas. And she's like, hey, you coming to Vegas anytime soon? And I was for work. And she said, well, call us when you land. We'll send someone to pick you up at the airport and give you a tour of our office. We'd love to bring you around. And then we'll take you wherever you need to go for work. And I never took him up on that order or on that offer because I was there to do my own work. But I was blown away at that level of service. And the same way, Joe, on your website, you're offering that, or the service you use offers that. That's so cool. And you're the man. I hope we get to revisit again. I have a whole list of things I wanted to get to, but just too much. You're too interesting, brother. Good luck with all your work. And can't wait to connect. Can't wait to connect in the future.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
All right, Joe. Take it easy, man. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to Fulfillment Project today. If someone popped in your head, you're thinking, oh, they'd be good to listen to this, share it with them right now while it's still on your mind. Subscribe, 5-star, all the stuff. Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Substack, wherever you get your content, you can find Fulfillment Project. See you next time.